Thanks for the invitation. I really feel proud to be here part of this forum and would like to welcome all friends and family of the semiconductor industry here for what is hopefully something insightful for you. And what I want to talk about is the semiconductor growth, and I call it the multi-billion global jackpot, and I hope at the end again can give some hints how to crack this. But before I come to this, I want to give a few words on my own profile, although I see a lot of familiar faces around who might know me. I'm more than 20 years in this industry. I've been the MD of Infineon here in 2005 and 2006, and I've been the MD for a company called Lantiq since 2009 until 2012. As Lantiq, we have a big R&D workforce here in India, here in Bangalore, and we are very proud of this team. So on the left side, you see what I'm paid for. On the right side, you see what I do out of my passion. You see that I'm the president of the Singapore equivalent of the ISA or IESA, a tiny equivalent from a tiny place called Singapore. We call it the little red dot Singapore, but I think a quite mighty source for this industry. And you see that also from other assignments, I think I can bring some experience into the discussion on how can governments influence the success factors for our industry. And let me make it very quick in the interest of time. I will talk about, first of all, the motivation. Why should governments have an interest to drive an industry which is, I think all of you know, quite man-eating, quite demanding, very risky, and very, very brave to succeed there. Don't worry, governments are interested, and this is, by the way, one of the parts which make this industry so competitive. Then, of course, I want to talk about success factors and government instruments to drive these success factors. I want to talk very briefly about how associations can have their share in this influence. I want to talk mainly about role models, other countries who can be as a learning instrument also for India. And at the end, I hope I can give you something to take away from this session. One of another 1 million tips for 1 billion demands, as I learned yesterday. So let's start with the motivation. I said this industry is really not an easy catch. It's not an easy turn of dollars into return of investment. Why? I want to start with this carrying off barriers. The industry is very volatile. It's almost predictable that we go through a very cyclic development. We are working, because of this high industry volatility, with a high risk. It's a highly competitive global landscape, but why is it so competitive? Because everyone is interested to take its share in this fantastic industry. It's low gross margin, and I'm afraid to say this is part of our program. Semiconductor has always been part of squeezing out the last quarter of a cent from a product, and this is what has made our industry so important. There's a low visibility for short and midterm future. Of course, you might say, very predictable. Apple will bring in the next killer application in June, latest in July, and this is something everyone can bet on. But seriously, there's more which we have to look at when putting money into this industry. There's an industry with extremely high capital demand. I think no other industry where you just have to put in 4 to 6 billion US dollars to build up a single fab. And this, of course, is something which typically scares off others to get a share in the industry. Why is still semiconductor such an attractive place? Let me go through briefly, because all of you know. First of all, an industry which is going to a $500 billion US dollar industry for a country is hard to ignore. There is, besides all the volatility, a deterministic long-term growth perspective. and what is very important for a country, an opportunity to generate a high number of jobs. And let me put this in a very simple number. When you create one job for a construction worker, you create one job in a country. When you create one job in a wafer fab, depending on how you calculate, of course, you create up to 100 jobs in the periphery, in the infrastructure, in the supply, service, and support of this one job. So the leverage a country can have of bringing especially wafer fab industry into the country is unbeatable. And these jobs you bring in are extremely high qualified. These are guys who make it there, and if you don't need them in semiconductor, you can spread them out anywhere, they make it anywhere else. Also for a country, very important, you grow a good pool of talents. You have to gain or keep ownership of technologies. This was always the major scare of countries, that they cannot get the technology. But I think what is more important, especially for a country like India, is the trade deficit. When you look at the amount of electronics goods a country like India needs, you cannot put your strategy on something which comes only from outside. I think I don't have to tell you. Let me quote to just emphasize again on the importance of semiconductor industry. Since our friend from SSIA cannot make it today, let me quote at least his organization. And this is simply about the role the semiconductor industry will play for all other industries. It drives and is in the heart of any kind of innovation in the future. This is the technology which changes our future. Independent of this communication, data processing, automotive, health, governance, whatever you talk of, we stand still as semiconductor industry. The rest of the world will slow down immediately. So what are the country success factors? Also this one I want to go through very brief. Country success factors, of course, is government focus, especially in our industry, which needs so much of government infrastructure. A strong alignment with the needs and the plans of the government is very important. Secondly, human resources. You need low-cost resources. You need highly educated, but you need diverse, which means you need those who are low-cost, and you need those which are highly educated, not necessarily both in one person. You need a well-connected league of individual entrepreneurs. I put this as a strong emphasis, also as a strength for India, where India can really be proud of. But, of course, you also need an abundant and robust country infrastructure, especially when you want to bring in more than just R&D. You need logistics excellence, and you need a stable and predictable political and legal framework, and, of course, preferably free from natural disasters, which is, if you allow me, more a joke, because everyone knows that our industry, starting from Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, California, wherever we go to places which are earthquake-prone, and it seems our industry is attracted by this form of risk. What are the instruments governments can take to support this? Of course, the first thing you expect from the government is to throw money at the industry, but this is not everything. Of course, government also needs to be the exclusive partner for country infrastructure and resources. Of course, government can support free trade and special economic zones. Talking about free trade, I think all of you are watching the US taking the lead to make a very unique arrangement with the European Union in these days for free trade agreement across the Atlantic. I think a lot of countries will have to watch out there carefully.